Hello everyone. Okay, so this video is going to give more details about the GEET engine update. And this is the GEET engine. This is a Ryobi 700 to 900 watt propane generator. So here's where the propane fuel goes in here, comes out, goes into this regulator. I added this so I can decrease the fuel. This hose is going to connect to the air fuel mixer. It connects. This is all kind of loose right now, but I'm just giving you an update. That hose will connect right into there. That's where it goes in. That's where the propane goes in. And there's some adjustments here. There's an adjustment there, and there's an adjustment here, and there's also an adjustment here. But I thought having the ability to reduce the fuel would be an interesting experiment to do. So I just added that myself here. Okay, so this is the Ryobi 700 watt continuous propane generator, and we added a GEET system to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this area here because this is all loose. So I'm going to take this off just so I can move it out of the way and show you. So what happens here is this. The propane air mixer, this used to connect directly to the engine. It used to connect right in here. We've removed that and put it here. This is just black pipe from the plumbing store, and we used a washer and cut it, drilled holes in it, welded it to the black pipe, and that's what we're using to connect into our air fuel mixer here. That's just black pipe. Now here we're using this is also just pipe, but it's this is 304. I think it's stainless steel. You don't have to use that though. We just chose that. Kind of mixing black pipe with stainless steel pipe and just different pipe. It goes along here. And I was thinking how a lot of people use on the GEET engine, they'll use something called a bubbler or an evaporator, which it's where you put your fuel, usually liquid fuels, and you mix the liquid fuels with, oftentimes people like to use different soft drinks, coffee, liquids of all types. Some people just put water in there, tap water, or different kinds of water, ocean water, whatever, any kind of water, bottled water, any kind of water. What we're going to do is we're going to mix, we're going to probably put, I might use distilled water since it'll keep this clean, because tap water has like a lot of stuff in it, a lot of, it'll just make it dirty in there. So this is a water filter, and I put a vacuum gauge on it because I want this, if possible, to be in at least a slight vacuum below atmospheric pressure. So if I can get any kind of vacuum out of this, I'll be happy. I don't know how that's going to go. This engine is so small. This engine is only 40 cc's, 1.5 horsepower. Ryobi, when I called tech support, they said the compression on their propane engines ranges between 60 and 70 psi of compression. So compression is very important when adding a GEET system, so I don't know how that's going to do, if that's enough compression for this to make it work efficiently, but we'll find out. And like I've said before, if this fuel system doesn't work on this engine, meaning it doesn't increase efficiency a lot, it's not going to make it worse. It should at least increase it a little or a lot possibly. So, but we like experimenting, so we want to see what we can do with this. So we have the propane coming in here. This will be mixed with different amounts of water to mix the propane with the water vapors. The way this goes is this is inlet and outlet. So in looks like it goes to the outside of the filter, and then the center of that filter is where it goes out. And that will let the propane plus water vapor go out through here. And the way I'm planning to control how much water is mixing with the propane is just how much water I put in this. If I understand correctly, my first thoughts are putting a little bit of water would allow for much more evaporation because it gives more surface area for this filter to be wet. Because if I put a little water in the bottom, this filter will absorb that upward. And it's kind of like, it makes me think of nature, how trees do that and plants do that. They pull the water up from the ground. So I don't know what that process is called. I know there's a name for it. But if I want less evaporation, I would fill this up higher. So wherever it runs good, when I'm mixing the propane with the water, whatever air, water to fuel ratio there is, that's ideal, I can then have an inlet that keeps this at a certain level. Maybe I just put the water inlet at the height I want this at, and then have it go over. I'm not sure how I'll do that, but right now I'm just going to be testing. So this all has to be braced still. I have to brace everything. So what I can do today, though, is I can take this all off just to show you how it connects to the engine. So here we have a brace connecting this area of the system. We have a brace going from this pipe, which is the exhaust pipe here. See, the fuel pipe goes through the middle, okay? Fuel pipe going through the center. This is a 1/2 inch pipe in the middle, okay? I'm using a schedule 80. Some people use schedule 80, some people use schedule 40. If I could go back and do this over, and this is what I'm planning to do, is I'll probably go to just drawn over mandrel, the DOM metal. I don't know why I didn't do that on this one. I'm not even sure why. I think I just liked that this was already threaded and it had threads. But now I'm just like, oh, I'm starting from the very beginning. I can do anything. So I would have, if I can go back, I would have used DOM metal there. I think I liked how this inner pipe, the 1/2 inch pipe, and this outer pipe fit so closely together. There's almost no gap between the two. But yet there is a little gap. And I mean, it's very, very small. What's amazing is all that restriction, if I call it that really close distance in there, and yet the engine runs really, really well. So the exhaust comes out here and squeezes between the two pipes and then comes out here. And the inner and outer pipe are welded together here. So the exhaust won't leak out here and won't leak out over there. And the vapors, the propane vapor and the water vapor, will go in the center pipe, not to make contact with the exhaust. It's just there's just I'm not sure how to explain what's taking place, but the vapors, the fuel vapors, if I say it that way, going in the center pipe, and exhaust vapors going in the opposite direction through this pipe here. And then I also noticed a lot of water comes out of the exhaust because we're burning propane. And I haven't added water to this yet. I want to run part water, part propane, and have those two mix in this chamber here, which is really just a $5 Amazon water filter, $5 or $10 I think it was. And the water that comes out of the exhaust, it lets a lot of water out, and I want to put that back. I want to let that drain back into here to help keep this full of water, which would be nice, because water vapors is a byproduct of combustion, no matter what fuel you're using. So I also want to have, and I know a lot of people do this with their experiments, and I've read it on the build plans on the internet as well, is there can be a way of letting this exhaust, controlling how much of the exhaust goes back into the system. So I'm thinking of cooling the exhaust somehow, letting it cool through some kind of, maybe something like this right here. See, because we're cooling the fuel off when it comes out of here. This is cooling off the fuel before it goes in. This allows me to let more air in, more or less air in. Something like this maybe for the exhaust, and then have that go back into here. Now the water is going to get very cold from evaporation. It's going to get very cold in here, which this system likes. This system wants very cold fuel with hot exhaust going in the opposite direction. And then we have the little metal rod that will go inside the center pipe. This is important. The Earth has an iron core, and this in a way is the iron core here. right? So Earth, what's Earth? Earth is iron core, and then space is like minus 455 degrees Fahrenheit. So Earth has this hot core and this very cold, or a big difference in temperature, if we say it that way, from the core of the Earth to the vacuum of space, if we say it that way. So this system replicates nature, as I understand it, and it's like creating a thunderstorm. So it really replicates nature in many ways, and I study a lot of nature to help me understand this technology. But I wouldn't say, I would say it this way: I'm at the beginning of my education of this system, at the very beginning, and I'm enjoying it. So this is our little 2-inch rod. I don't know if it needs to be longer or shorter, but I'll just experiment and see how it goes. Paul tells a story once of when he started this. He literally just had a piece of metal when he was experimenting with this system in the beginning, many, many years ago. Paul Pantone. He just had a metal bar, just a bar, laying next to this, what I think he was looking at kind of like as he was using this kind of as a vaporizer when he began, if I understand correctly, just to vaporize the fuel. And one day he stuck a metal bar in there, and he just ran it and saw what it did. And he said, if I understand correctly, it increased efficiency by sticking that in there, and he didn't know why. And he wasn't making it the perfect length or the perfect diameter. He just took metal and stuck it in there because it was laying next to his experiment. So the reason I tell that story is because that was his beginning. And in the same way, I don't know how to make this get maximum efficiency, but I can try longer, shorter, and just see what it does. But this is what I'm starting with. This is a regular piece, 1/2-inch metal rod that a magnet can stick to. I know some people use glass in these, and they use aluminum. I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to start with this. So here it is, 1/2-inch, 1/2-inch, 3/4 inch, because that allows me to put a larger sight glass in here. So nothing has been sealed yet. The bottom of what holds this in place is the bottom of the 1/2-inch pipe, the center pipe, which I'm using schedule 80, and I'm not saying that's the right pipe to use. You have to use what you feel is right. I'm just using schedule 80 because it fit close with this outer pipe. It made the distance very close between the two, and I mean very, very close. So there's a spring inside this center pipe that this rests on, and the spring stops. So in the center pipe here, the 1/2-inch pipe, okay, the center one, that pipe has little weld marks on the center of it. It has 3 weld marks, but I don't think it matters how many you use. We just used 3, and that keeps the spring from falling out of that pipe. So there's little weld marks there, and then the spring just sits on that, and the spring is smaller than the center pipe, but then it was stretched larger to hold this, and also to touch the weld marks on the bottom there. Now the spring is very short. It's probably like this short, and it goes, it rests there and then stops here, and it lets this kind of sit right where the exhaust exits, and then this is supposed to move up and down by itself, just by the energy that takes place by having really hot going in one direction, which is this way actually, and then cold going in the opposite direction. Okay, so we have our cold propane. Let's talk about propane. Let's see, propane expands, and you'll have to confirm this for yourself, but propane, I think it expands approximately 270 times, I think it is. I should have looked these numbers up before I started streaming. I think it expands 270 times approximately when it goes from a liquid to a vapor. And I think when the pressure is less than, and I apologize for not having these numbers ready for you, when the pressure reaches below a certain amount, the propane automatically becomes a vapor. So I think this tank will maintain a fixed pressure, pretty much fixed pressure, by, okay, let me let the cat out. Okay. There you go. Okay, excuse me. Okay, so the propane tank will maintain a fixed pressure because what happens is when it's less than a certain pressure, more of the liquid will evaporate and go to the top. Now this tank originally sat at a slight angle, like kind of like this. I don't know what angle you would call that, but it wasn't up like it is now. But what I read about propane is the vapors in a propane tank go to the top. So I thought, let's just have this stand straight up and down. That's why I have this way. I only want vapors to come out. So by the time the vapors come through here, okay, so the vapors are going to come through here, and this is going to connect to our air fuel mixer. That's going to go through here into here, and I'm hoping to have a vacuum here because that's going to, I think that's part of how, what allows this to work is when this line is in a vacuum. Now vacuum, it's not going to be the same vacuum as outer space, right? Outer space is actually just 0 psi. This is the way I understand it. Outer space is 0 psi, okay? We are actually under pressure, and I think that's about 14.7 psi, pounds per square inch, of pressure at sea level. So if 14.7 psi is basically the pressure that we are experiencing, or the atmosphere pushing on us, pushing on our bodies, then if we can go below that, I'm calling that vacuum. So if we can go lower than 14.7 pounds per square inch. Okay, so we'll just see how that goes though. So let me take all this off. This is all just kind of resting here now while I kind of mount everything together, because I want to show you something else we added to this small engine, and something I learned about engines, which it might sound overly simple, but it's something I learned, and that is electric starter. This engine did not come with an electric starter, but it's because having all this plumbing, right? We're moving the fuel further from the engine. It can take longer to start it. So instead of pull starting it, I wanted to have an electric start. So this was all made here. This was all created, welded in parts from different starting systems on different engines. So this is a starter that's made for a 125cc engine. This is only a 40cc engine, so this starter turns this engine very fast, and it starts up very quickly. This is a one-way bearing. It has three ball bearings, three really big ball bearings in here, and it's very noisy. If I could go back, I would use a clutch system, and we're thinking of switching over to a clutch system. This was a lot of work to make this, but it's noisy. It's very noisy. It rattles, and the little balls that are in there, the three little balls, they rattle so loud. This engine is so quiet when it runs. It's really incredible. It's smooth and quiet. So we might switch over to a clutch system that when the electric motor spins, the centrifugal clutch will open up, and I guess the larger plate that the centrifugal clutch will push against will be connected to this side, the engine, and then it'll engage it and spin it. So we'll do that. The battery will go over here. This is where the battery goes. This plugs into the battery, and here's the starter switch right here. And this line here is an emissions line, so I'll get a longer hose, and I'll connect that to, let's see where that goes to. It goes to right here. That hose goes there, so that will still go there. I just need to get a longer hose. I'm planning to use these fittings, because I was using the red RTV, which is I think it's called a silicone. It's like a gasket. It's like a liquid gasket. The red, it can handle high temperatures, and I'm planning to use that in these areas. And it's really messy though, so I'm not going to use a lot. I'll just use very little. So that's going to go here. I'll put some here. Anywhere it gets hot. In this area all gets really hot. I'll put some here. All around here I'll put it on both sides of this one. In this whole area I'll have it. But then when we get over here, I think when I get to like this will probably just be using the tape. I think it's called plumber's tape, and they make some that's made for like propane. They have like a blue tape and a yellow tape, and it's made for like natural gas and stuff. So I'll make sure I use that kind. I'll use it here, everywhere there's a fitting, I'll put it in here, and then all in here, I'll plan to put that, because it's really important. Just watching Paul Pantone and his GEET demo engine demonstrations on YouTube, he talks about how important it is to not have vacuum leaks. So everywhere things connect is an opportunity for there to be a vacuum leak. So I want to make sure there's no leaks. And that's another reason I want to be able to read my vacuum pressure here to see how much vacuum I can get. I want to get the most I can possibly get. That's my thoughts, because I think really high vacuum and really close distances with these pipes, not just the center rod to the inner pipe, but also the inner pipe to the outer pipe, those distances are very important. It seems like there's a significance to that. And then as far as the magnetic signatures are concerned, I think this thing just orients itself when it's running. I think everything it finds order or creates order by itself. I think that's how it works. But Paul, he just experimented and learned by experimenting. I mean, he didn't have anyone teaching him how to do this in the beginning. He just kept trying different things. And that's what I'm planning to do, is just keep trying different things and see what works for me. So here it is, everyone. This is the update. And as you can see here, there's a hole here. There's a hole here, right there. And there's a hole here, and that's where this whole system will bolt on. This is the scooter right here, Xiaomi Mijia M365, and this trailer is a Weehoo trailer. It's called Weehoo iGo. This is all just temporary right now. I just wired it because I want to do some testing with it. This is a watts up meter to tell me how much power the solar panels are producing for the Jenison charger. That's the charger we're using. It's a voltage boosting charger. So that's what we need. So the trailer is a Weehoo iGo, and as you see, 1, 2, and 3, and that's where it bolts on. So in the daytime, solar cells, 160 watts. And at night, we can run the GEET engine. So that's it. All right, everyone. Really excited about everything I'm learning. Really love learning. It's the greatest, one of the greatest gifts that we have, is to learn things. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next one. Oh, you know what? I told you I was going to take this apart, so let's do that. Okay, so that goes in the middle. Let's go ahead and take this apart, because everything's hand tight right now. Okay, let's see. I'm going to need some tools. Let's see what I have. Let's see if these tools will work. Okay, that goes there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this on this little tripod here, and I hope this will work for you while I take this system apart to show you how what it looks like. Apologies for the shaky camera. Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and take this apart as much as I can. I won't be able to take the center pipe out of the exhaust pipe because they're welded together, but I can take this off and you can look at it. So I'll go ahead and take this all off, because I told you I would do that earlier in the video. And everything's kind of just hand tight right now because I'm just figuring out how everything's going to fit together. So the GEET engine has the ability to significantly reduce exhaust emissions And I plan to do some exhaust testing if possible. They sell, on the internet, they sell different emission testing equipment where you can test the emissions. So that's something that I can look into to see how clean the exhaust is. It's already very clean with running propane, though. And one of the big advantages to running the GEET system is it allows you, like I was saying earlier, to run different fuels with it, including water, putting water mixed with the fuel, mixing the fuel of your preference with the water of your preference. Be right back. Just finding more tools here. So this is the GEET system here, right here. This is basically the main part of it. It's like the heart. And studying Paul Pantone's research that he has shared with everyone, he says that this is the most important part right here. This is where the exhaust comes out and the fuel goes through the center pipe. This is the most important part. And he said it's also the easiest to if I recall correctly, the easiest to build and the easiest to tune, if you say it that way. So I still have to learn what that means. But I will share the journey of my learning with you. Okay, so just taking off the... so this is adding a lot of weight. This exhaust, if I call it the exhaust and fuel system, it's heavy. So having this bracket here was very helpful in strengthening that. Now, Paul shares a story of having touched the bottom. This is a reactor. We're calling it a reactor. But it's not, it doesn't give off, it doesn't hurt us. It's not going to hurt us. So even though we're calling it a reactor, it's not going to harm us. But there's a reaction that takes place from the hot exhaust going out and the cold fuel going in the opposite direction, and then the iron core, which is like Earth has that. Earth has an iron core. So how do we resonate with the natural energies of the universe? And I think that's what the GEET system does. It's kind of like if you have a windmill, and if you block the wind from a windmill, then you're not letting nature power give you any energy. But if you don't block the windmill, it spins, and it's powered by nature. And this is similar. This is a similar way, just in a more, if we say a more sophisticated version of that. So the reason I was saying this was we connected this to this part because Paul shares in a story, and if you watch the previous upload, I mentioned how Paul got shocked by this once, and Paul had shared a story where he had just built a GEET, and he felt inclined to touch the bottom of it with a coat hanger. And it was raining out. It started to rain, and he was standing in a puddle. And he touched the bottom of this with a coat hanger, and it lifted him up from the ground and threw him back, which reminds me of the scene in Back to the Future, the original Back to the Future, that where Marty gets tossed back from that amplified speaker, and it threw him back. I don't know if you saw that movie, but it really had a lot of power. So the GEET system has a lot of energy as well. So right now I'm just taking out the screws because I want to take this off so I can show you what this all looks like. Everything's just hand tight right now as I figure out how I want to place everything. A lot of people say, well, how come this technology is not mainstream? How come automakers aren't using it? And how come you can't just buy one anywhere? Well, my understanding of that is there has to be a demand for something. And that might sound silly to say that, like, oh, who would not demand this? But the thing is that if you're not aware of something, how can you ask for it? So the first thing is becoming aware that something exists, which you can build one and see for yourself that exists, or you can just start asking for the technology, because there's so many people already using it, and you can see that it works by people sharing their experience. And you could just say, like for example, when the plug-in Prius came out, before it came out, when plug-in hybrids weren't around yet, Plug-in America, which is a nonprofit group of people that promote electric cars and clean technologies, they said if you want the electric cars, you have to call the automakers and ask for them. They're not going to just make them. You have to let them know that you want them, because they can't make something you're not going to buy. What if these GEET systems became available everywhere, but no one bought them because they didn't even know they exist? So the first thing is becoming aware of what exists, and then checking in with yourself to see if you want that. And if you do, then you just ask for it. And when enough people ask for something, that's usually when it becomes available. But meanwhile, for now, you can build one yourself. And Paul, he shared the plans, and everyone can build one for themselves. He gives everyone permission to build a GEET. So this is the cooler. I'm using this as a little cooler here. Okay, so what are we looking at now? Everything's disconnected. Okay, so this is... So I'll say GEET Gas. Okay, GEET Gas. The GEET Gas. Or we can call it modified fuel. We can call it that. I'll call it modified fuel for now. It's, you can call it GEET Gas. Once it passes through this area right here, okay, once the fuel comes in, which is like, in this case, it's going to be water mixed with propane. Once that comes in here and goes through the center pipe, and then here, let me take this off, the exhaust comes out here, right? That's exhaust coming out, hot exhaust coming out here, okay? And it squeezes between those two pipes, which is a half-inch black pipe. Schedule 80 is what I used. There's Schedule 40 and Schedule 80. I use Schedule 80 because it fit better with this outer pipe. They fit very close together. And the research that Paul Permit shared said that when you have when that distance is closer together on the two pipes, that increases efficiency. It maximizes efficiency. So having a restriction there in this area. And I don't understand all of why that is, but I trust it to be true because others that know much more than I do share that knowledge. So this is connected here. Why did I put the brace here on this part, on the exhaust part? Okay, this is where the exhaust goes, right? Welded closed here, welded closed there, vapors coming up, hot exhaust this way. Okay, well, Paul said that he got shocked from this. He touched this with a coat hanger on when he helped a customer build the GEET demo engine, which you can get the free build plans on GEET International website. And he touched the bottom of this, but he was standing in a puddle of water, and it had started to rain. But when he touched it, it lifted him from the ground and threw him back. That tells me there's a lot of energy here. And Paul had said this produces a lot of energy. So that makes me think, having studied people like Rick Friedrich here on YouTube, and studied many videos that he has on his channel, like Donald Smith. Donald Smith said the Earth is a brushless motor. Isn't that interesting? Earth is a brushless motor. I really like that. I have much more to learn about that. And then studying people like Thomas Bearden, and Russell Anderson, and John Searle, it really feels like it helps me understand how and why this system works. So it's really to make sense of all the knowledge that is shared, not just by nature, but by the interpretations of people that experiment with nature and experiment with technology to learn all that they can about the world we live in. What is equally important is understanding the self and looking into ourselves and checking in with our own feelings and what life means to us, and keeping an eye on that too, because it's not just about technology. It's about humanity and technology. It's those two things together. Very, very important. Okay, so this is it, everyone. I'll go ahead and open this up some more. So I have a sight glass here. This one's a 1/2 inch. Granger and McMaster Carr both sell these. I think they're just called a sight glass, or there's different names for them, but it has glass. And I got the ones that didn't have the metal piece in there because then I can't really see inside. I did run the engine already once with the smaller sight glass on top. Let me see where it is. Oops. I don't see it right now, but this is the smaller one. This is the 1/2 inch one. I ran the engine with one of these on the top here, and I couldn't see in there inside very well, but I could see the little metal rod. If I call it the iron core, like Earth's iron core, right? It makes me think of that. This rod, I could see it spinning in there really fast, and that's part of how this works. It's part of what allows this to work. And again, Paul said when he first did this, he didn't know the rod would do anything. He just saw it laying next to his experiment, Paul Pantone, and he just put it in there. And then he saw scratches on the rod after they had been running it that indicated that the rod was spinning. Now, why would it spin? Very interesting, right? So there's something there. And I've run this, and you can see it has, I can see the marks in it too. Look, you can see that it spins. I don't know if you could see that, but there's scratches. See that scratch right there? Right there. And you can see it here too. See that? That's where it rests on the spring right here where my thumb is. See it scratching? This rod spins really fast. So what forces spin that? Interesting to consider. Okay, let's also take this off. Everything should be hand tight here. Oh, let me take this off first. So some of the fittings I got in stainless steel. This is stainless steel, but that's not necessary. It just looked nice. This is black pipe, 1/2 inch. Okay, so there's that. Now we can get a closer look at the spring. You can see the spring in there. You can get a closer look at this is the 1/2 inch Schedule 80 black pipe that I used. I'm going to take this off. This is just 3/4, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and that's just so I can use a bigger sight glass on the top. I got one for the bottom too, but it's hitting the frame on the trailer. If I make the hole bigger, the frame's there anyway, so it's not going to really work. And because I have this electric starter on the engine, I don't want to move everything over, so I'll just leave it for now. Let's go ahead and pull the spring out. I guess I can take the spring out of there so we can look in there. So let me do that. Let's see. I'll take you with me. Looking for something that I can pull the spring out with. I think this might let us get the spring out. I'll try that. Oh, let me also get a flashlight. Okay. Just adjusting camera here. Apologies for the shaky camera. Okay, so let's see what we have. So the spring, I'm going to push the spring, so just so you can see, oops, sorry for all the noise, everyone. See the spring in there? That's what the rod rests on. And I don't know if you can see the weld marks. There's just some little welds on the wall, like one there's a weld right there. A little drop of metal like welded there. Another one, and another one, and the spring just rests on that. And so if I want to get the spring out, I push it. I can't pull it this way. I could push it through though. So I'll push the spring out this way, and then I'll see if I can grab it on this side. There it is. So this is the spring that holds the rod. Okay, again, this is an important part of what makes the system work. Okay, so the spring rests right about there. The rod rests on that spring, and see how it's kind of lined up with the exhaust? That's just where I'm putting it. I don't know the correct place to put it, but it makes sense to me that if the area of importance is where the exhaust and the fuel vapor pass each other, even though the actual exhaust and fuel never touch each other, it's just the motion, it's the cold fuel vapor on the inner pipe, and that inner pipe is sealed from the outer pipe. This is just one solid pipe, the inner pipe is. The outer pipe is slid over the inner pipe and then welded. Now, one thing about this I'm going to say is, the person that welded this for me, I said this is very important to me. He put shims around this so that the distance of the between the pipe would be equal all the way around. Because if this was pulled to one side, right? This is just what I'm thinking. This is my own thoughts, okay? Because when you weld something, it pulls the metal toward it, right? If this got pulled close on this side and then close on this side, right? Then the hot exhaust can't spin around. It can't spin around. It's just going to go up this side. It's not going to be able to pass through on this side, right? And there's such a small distance. It really is so small. But he put shims in here. The welder put shims here so that when he welds it, that there'll be equal distance all the way around. And so this whole thing gets hot, and the hot exhaust spins around just by itself. That's just what it does. It spins around, it comes out this side, and then the vapors go up the center, and they spin around, the vapors spin around this rod. Okay, and let's see how close the distance is on this. Now, this looks pretty close, looking at this, right? It looks pretty close. But to me, I'm thinking, I really want it closer. The exhaust was so close, you almost couldn't even move it. You couldn't move it like that at all. It just there was barely any space at all. It was like that. It was like this, right there. Like maybe less than that. So I'll run it this way and see how it does. I'll just see how it does. But as you can see, that's how it sits in there now. So the fuel vapors will squeeze around this, and this thing will spin really fast. It becomes magnetized. One of the things that people do, I guess, is when they use a compass, no matter what side is facing up, the compass will say the same thing. That's one of the things I've seen just watching some of the GEET people demonstrating their experience. So let's see here. Let me put all this back in. Let's go ahead and peek inside here. I never really cleaned this pipe, so it's not clean. Let's go ahead and take a look through this. Just have a look at the pipe here. I don't know if we can see it very well. You can kind of see that a little bit. So one thing about this pipe that I forgot to mention was you don't see a weld seam in there. You see a little bit of dirt in there, but you don't see a weld seam, right? And this is called seamless. Seamless, no seam. So if there's a weld inside there, it won't even it may not even let the rod go in there because it's going to hit the weld. So that's important. But again, if I was starting over right now, this center pipe would be DOM. And I would just find a different pipe to fit the outside at the same distance as I had. This is where everything is, though. It's all right here. That's my understanding. People are the keepers of the knowledge of this system. Paul shared that that there's been so many discoveries made by the public, people just building these things and then calling up Paul and saying, "Hey Paul, look what we did with the GEET. We did this amazing thing." And then Paul would document it. He would test it and verify if it was really doing that. So I guess I have to find out for myself what it can do. But one of the things it can do that Paul shared was that it produces more oxygen out of the exhaust than is found in our atmosphere. And that seems very helpful and very important. So as you can see here, sorry for the shaky camera, as you can see, the GEET system is really an exhaust and fuel system combined, which is the way that Paul describes it. And this is the heart of it right here. This is the heart of GEET. It's where the exhaust and the fuel vapor, whatever fuel you're using, come together. And then having the rod in the middle. If you want customer support, you have to contact GEET International. I'm not permitted to answer questions, but I'm permitted to share my experience. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just sharing my experience. I don't know the correct way to build this, but it's based on the free build plans, and I'm just going to experiment and see what I can learn. So when the fuel vapors come out of the top, well, I'm saying the GEET gas or the modified fuel, it's going to go into this, and this is going to cool it a little bit. Now I bought a larger cooler, but I don't want to start with the larger cooler at the moment because I want to just start simple and see what the system does. But this is the larger cooler that I found on Amazon. Because I want to cool the fuel as much as possible, I thought this might be helpful. And this can fit right here. That can fit right there. And that can cool the fuel, or it can fit on this side too. And that can cool the fuel back down. It has two rows of the coils. And I don't know if I'll use that. It may not be needed. And I don't know if how it runs most efficient. Does it run more efficient when the fuel's cooled or when it's heated? I don't know. I'll have to test it. I'll just have to do testing. But I know that I'll say the freshly produced fuel or the modified fuel or the GEET gas, when it comes in, oftentimes, and on the free plans, it also shows a mixing of fresh air with that fuel. So I put this needle valve in there to allow me to have that option. And what's interesting is this is really a bolt here. You can see the bolt there, which is welded to this tube, this steel tube. And then the welder drilled through the center of that bolt and then just screwed this in, the needle valve in. And we'll see how that works. And then this also acts as a brace for the reactor as well. We're going to call this a reactor because that's what it's referred to as a reactor, but it's not harmful the way that we think of reactors generally speaking. But this doesn't hurt us at all. So it's not a harmful, it's a clean technology. Okay, everyone, so we basically looked at the inside of the GEET system, and you can see it. You can see everything that we've done here. And we're excited about this. Okay, so we'll see you in the next video. And as you can see, no other modifications aside from adding the electric starter have been made to the engine. Like, we haven't changed anything else. You know, we just took the exhaust off of here. The original muffler bolted to this, and it was like a big muffler. It was all this whole area. And the air fuel mixer here, that was connected directly to here. It was connected directly to there, and that's it. That's how it was. So we took that off, and we add all these things that you make for yourself. And this is the way we're doing this. We haven't, I don't know if there's one way to mix the fuel with water or whatever fuel you want, but this is the way we're going to try it. It was just a thought and an idea, and we'll see how it turns out this way. Okay, everyone, have a great day, and thanks for watching the stream. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see future videos, subscribe to our channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next stream. Okay, everyone, bye.